Lee Murray was that crazy English hoodlum. He was a part of the biggest bank robbery in like the history of Great Britain.
6 men, some of them masked and armed with handguns.
This is planned and executed with military precision.
When he announced that final figure of £53 million, everyone's jaws just dropped.
What happened in that famous street fight?
Which one?
Lee Murray.
I'll fight anybody, I don't care who they are, I will fight them. I'm not scared of no man.
Lee Murray is one of the most legit gangsters of all time.
You can't put me down, you got to kill me to stop me. I will keep going and going and going, there will always be a fight, and I will always fight.
Lee Murray was born in southeast London, which is considered a traditional breeding ground for professional criminals, especially armed robbers. His mother was English and his father immigrated from Morocco. Growing up there was tough for Lee. His father was a raging alcoholic and was often violent towards him. Naturally, the atmosphere at home left Lee out on the streets more often than not in his teenage years. And before he knew it, he found camaraderie in a crime gang, the Buttmarsh Boys, where he was very much the front and center in its organization, alongside with his best friend Paul Allen. One day when the abuse of his father was too much to bear, he snapped and violently knocked him out with one punch. It was a moment that truly hardened this boy into the violent man he would become. But whatever peace Lee Murray ought to have gotten, instead he fell down a slippery slope. After getting kicked out of school, his criminal lifestyle along with his gang only intensified. He spent some time in a youth offenders prison, and this gave him a chance to really hone his physique into fighting shape. Lee was no small-time crook either. Theft, drug dealing and street fighting, Lee engaged in it all, and he became a debt collector for the top gangsters in London, with him and his right-hand man Paul Allen. Their sheer size and strength made them an unstoppable force to be reckoned with, and he started getting all kinds of special treatment. He never waited in a queue in line at the club and always got the best seat at any event he went to. He also had expensive taste, only wearing designer garments and expensive jewellery. But attention like that is always going to spread like wildfire. And in 1999, during the heights of his gang's infamy, the London police acted fast and arrested a large number of Lee's criminal associates. With his income in shreds and his freedom at risk, Lee decided to make a positive change in his life and started focusing on his passion, MMA. He took his MMA career seriously with the dreams of becoming a UFC champion. Therefore, he moved to the US to improve on his wrestling and jiu-jitsu and trained under the former UFC welterweight champion Pat Miletich, training alongside some of the elite from the sport.
Like, I can look at Lee for longer than 3 seconds and go, "What you got going on, dude? You're wearing a Rolex and you're wearing Gucci shoes and we're in Iowa." And then he can say, "I'm also a bit of a gangster and I'm able to be a fighter because I do this on the side. But my side hustle is really my real gig. Don't tell anyone."
I'm Lee Murray from London, England. I'm a Valentino fighter. I come here to fight today in the ultimate bout. I don't know nothing about the guy that I'm fighting.
After a pair of rapid knockouts in his opening 2 pro bouts, he earned himself the nickname Lightning Lee Murray. UFC 38 was the first ever event in London. Although Lee wasn't in the UFC, he was sitting cage side alongside Paul Allen. After the event, they went to the UFC post-fight party alongside some of the biggest names in the sport, including Tito Ortiz, who was the UFC light heavyweight champion and was branded as the baddest man on the planet.
I want to talk about something that's become a part of MMA folklore, MMA urban myth, which I want to get you to clarify. Tito Ortiz and a man named Lee Murray got into a street fight, where apparently Tito Ortiz got knocked out by Lee Murray.
I didn't hear about Lee Murray until the night of that fight in London.
And I'm with Lee, and Tito kind of sees me. "Hey, what's up, Fricklin?" Kind of like that. I go, "Hey, Tito, this is my friend Lee Murray." And Tito goes, "What's up?" And Lee was getting, you saw his fucking eyes go, "Oh, you mother." He goes, "Oh, that guy." I go, "Shh." I go, "Shh." He goes, knocks my hand away. He goes, "That fucking pumpkin head."
After the party was finished, everyone was outside of the club, and a little dispute caused Paul Allen to knock out Tito's friend.
But right when he saw his buddy get knocked out, he saw Tito. He goes, "Oh, your boy got knocked the fuck out."
Like a powder keg. just erupts. You got a fight over there, a fight over there, a fight over there.
And Tito throws a combination of punches at Lee, and Lee literally just ducks out of the way of all of them. Lee comes back with the combo, and every punch lands, all 5 punches.
Crack, 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 crack. A 5-punch combination, literally 5 punches.
And then Lee started to punt him in the head with his steel-toed boot.
And then Lee's trying to, you know, kick him like he's jumping on a rattlesnake. Tito didn't even have a chance to get up.
He started running away. I started chasing to him. He turns around and stops and plants his feet. I go to stop and I slide right into him. He clipped me, dropped me, and I popped right back up. I was never unconscious at the time. In my whole career, I've never been unconscious, and I never will go unconscious.
After winning 4 fights in a row, including a sensational knockout over Brazilian veteran Pelé, this caught the attention of Dana White, and Lee was signed to the UFC. They were after an English MMA star, and Lee Murray was exactly what they were looking for.
Just amazing to be here. It's a dream for me. Waited all my life for this. Since I started training 5 years ago, this is my goal, to get in. The next goal is the belt. And whoever gets in my way for me getting to that belt, they're going to get knocked out. Cold, hard.
Your dream, man, all right? Your dream. And there's no one take it away from you. Come on. Nobody. What are we going to do?
Lee's dreams were finally turning to reality, and he showed himself to be a true entertainer, walking out dressed as the Hannibal Lecter. His opponent, Jorge Riviera, is a veteran fighter and tried to control Lee utilizing his wrestling. However, Lee was proficient in jiu-jitsu and caught Jorge in a triangle off his back. Lee Murray won via submission, a dream debut by any metric and a star in the making. He even grabbed a mic and called out Tito Ortiz to try even the score.
My name's always going to be in the back of his head until he gets in here and tries to shut me up, if that's what you think you can do. Tito's standing up!
But his time in the UFC was short-lived. Dana White got word that Lee was under investigation for a horrific incident in London, a road rage attack that saw Lee put a man in a coma. His visa was denied by the US and he was pulled from the UFC.
One good career that I had, you know what I mean, to get me out of the street, they took away from me. Why they would want to do something like that, I don't know.
Lee returned to the UK and his life of crime. He was then quickly signed by the British promotion Cage Rage for a fight against their newest prospect, a Brazilian striker on a hot streak by the name of Anderson the Spider Silva.
Lee Murray agreed to fight for Cage Rage. Cage Rage, he was like, I will not fight unless you get me the best. I will give you names. I want the best. I want to get to the UFC. He had his plan, you know, and that was it. Bang. Give me Anderson Silva. We're like, mate, listen, why don't you take a little, he went, no easy fight, I want this guy. To me, Lee Murray was the early Conor McGregor. Everything to him was like, yeah, Dave, let me get in, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it. He had it all planned in his head, you know, if you look at Anderson Silva weigh-ins.
I'm nervous for every fight I take. Everybody gets nervous. That's just part of being human. If you don't get nervous, if I didn't get nervous, I'd be worried.
Lee was facing a young and hungry Anderson Silva, the fighter who would be known as the greatest of all time later in his career. And unfortunately for Lee, he bit off more than he could chew, as it was evident Anderson was levels above. Lee showed his heart by hanging in there and proved he could stand toe-to-toe with one of the best strikers from the sport. Just under a year later, Lee's name hit the headlines once again after he was stabbed multiple times in his torso. This was after a brawl broke out in a London nightclub he was attending.
But what happened? Someone just sneaked up behind me and stabbed me in. As I'm still fighting, the next minute, someone stabbed me again, and I just see blood spraying out the side of me. And I just got down on the floor, and Paul's come around and he goes, what's wrong? I said, someone stabbed me in the heart. And I said, that's it, I'm dead. I'm dead. But I was fighting, you know, I won't give up. I mean, even though I knew that I was in a bad way, and I was, you know what I mean, I was a big chance I was going to die. But I just kept on fighting. 4 or 5 weeks later, I was back in the gym training. That was not going to stop me from fighting. That would never stop me. That didn't ever, like, enter my head that would stop me from fighting in MMA.
Lee's now back to being a full-time criminal. He learned of the Securitas Depot, which is a government-run high-security facility that stores cash. They rustled up a crew of their most trusted associates and proceeded to plan and orchestrate the biggest heist in the history of the UK.
Who's really, mate? Who thinks the best person that goes to the door? You. Anyone. I don't give a f*** who goes to the door. The other place, you know what I mean? Yeah, but what I think probably takes 4 of us, and with a van. You want 2 of them in suits. Literally, it's going to be a matter of seconds, isn't it? I mean, newspapers and telly. I mean, especially when I have my comeback fights, they'll be all over in the newspapers, all in the national papers. So this is when we want it in there now. Tomorrow.
On the 1st of February 2006, around 8 PM, Colin Dixon, the manager of the Securitas Depot, was driving home from work. During his journey, a police car behind him flashes their lights. He pulls over. A man in a police uniform approaches him and tells him to step out of his vehicle. The next thing he knew, he was being pulled into the back of the police car, with a gun now resting millimeters from his face. Lee and his crew, after subduing Colin, went to his house and persuaded his wife and young child into coming with them, telling his family that Colin had been in an accident.
You know, none of us knew that they had a kid, a young kid anyway, that was just sprung on us at the moment. And obviously we'd gone too far down the road to turn back. We was too far in, we was too deep into it. You know, I'm just looking at this little boy and I'm thinking, what am I doing? What is going on here? You know, what have I got myself into?
Before long, Lee and his crew had the Securitas manager and his loved ones in a barn tied up. With no choice but to cooperate, Colin drew up a map of the facility and was promptly driven to the building with a gun to his head.
One of the robbers walked in with the manager and he walked straight through all the doors, got let in through all the doors, went straight into the security room. And then we got the phone call to come to make our way in. And I drove with 3 others in the car. And there was 2 others in the lorry with the wife and son. And then we got access to the building and joined them in the security room. Then we brought the lorry inside.
The crew of robbers entered the building armed with an AK-47, a pistol, a submachine gun and a shotgun. They tied up all of the employees with cable ties, while Colin pleaded with his co-workers to play along, telling them that his family's lives were at risk. 14 workers were tied up and not one of them dared to raise the alarm.
Yeah, we just explained to everyone that we weren't here to hurt anybody. We just wanted to cooperate with us and we were here to just take money and go.
As soon as the safe door was opened, nothing could prepare the crew with what was in there. £200 million in cash, packaged in bricks. Using a combination of shopping trolleys and a forklift, they made off with over £50 million, loading their lorry until they physically couldn't store more cash. And in just under 2 hours later, they were gone. They left their hostages locked up inside of the cages the money had been in, including Colin's family. The following day, the story was international news. But this heist of the century was not going to have a happy ending.
British police are hunting for a gang that pulled off one of the biggest armed robberies in the country's history.
The gang behind the raid were armed and dangerous.
These people have taken hostages, frankly. They've taken a young woman and her 8-year-old son and held them at gunpoint. They've terrorised 14 members of staff. These are callous criminals, they're professional criminals, they're an organised gang. Someone around the edge of this will know directly who's committed this, but may not have done the actual crime themselves. Those people are the people who may be able to earn a reward of up to £2 million.
After a composite sketch was released that looked exactly like Lee, they received a tip-off that he had visited a makeup artist to get makeup done to be disguised as a police officer. The makeup artist was promptly arrested and the police found some clues in her house. She eventually sold out some of the crew involved, and so did the owner of the garage where one of the vans they used was worked on. 2 days after the heist, the police were tipped off to the location of a van full of money, £1.3 million in a suitcase to be exact, along with a Scorpion machine gun and a balaclava.
Good evening. Detectives investigating the Tunbridge Depot robbery say that they've carried out armed raids across Kent.
At Maidstone Magistrates Court today, 2 more people were remanded in custody. Lee John Rusher, a 33-year-old roofer from Tunbridge Wells, and earlier today, Jetma Bukpapa, a 24-year-old unemployed man from Tunbridge. Both are charged with conspiracy to commit robbery.
We're gaining valuable forensic evidence, and I remain confident that we will both catch and convict the people responsible for this.
The police later find out that Lee Rusher's business partner had rented them the van, and he lives in a rural area with a barn. After searching the area the following day, they find another £120,000 in a black bin bag on the land. In the days that followed the heist, gradually the authorities began to piece it all together. Another tip-off led to £9.5 million being found in a container at a car garage, which was owned by Roger Coutts, a childhood friend of Lee Murray. One more garage follow-up resulted in a further £8.7 million being found, and by then the gang members themselves started talking, and slowly the whole operation began to crumble. It even came to light that they had an inside man who worked there and used a pinhole camera to record the facility. But as each of the names involved were slowly being put behind bars, Lee Murray was already planning his next move. After realizing he was in danger, he and Paul Allen left the UK, hopping on a ferry to France, eventually ending up in Morocco.
And it wasn't until, the main people started getting arrested, that was it. We knew that, they was obviously closing in, and getting close to us. So we knew that we had to get out, we had to leave the country.
Lee and Paul would spend the next 5 months throwing around their newfound cash, living the high life in their respective mansions. Lee even commissioned a large mural of himself painted on the wall of his new premises. Morocco made sense for Lee, at least, because of the fact that Morocco would not extradite one of their own to the UK. But the Metropolitan Police never lost sight of what Lee was up to. When Lee and Paul were eventually arrested in 2006 on drug charges, the police seized Lee's car, raided their mansions, and found a collection of luxury watches.
Kent police had been tracking the man for 3 months, but it was Moroccan officers who led the operation.
To Morocco now, where judges are set to decide today whether a key suspect in Britain's biggest cash robbery will be extradited.
I'm Morocco, my son is Morocco. That I can say.
Murray's family and friends flew to the Moroccan capital to await the judge's decision.
Paul Allen was shipped back to the UK and pleaded guilty to kidnapping and robbery, earning himself an 18-year prison sentence. On the other hand, Lee was not extradited to the UK. Instead, he was sentenced to 10 years by the Moroccan police, which got increased to 25 years shortly after. Many of the gang pointed to Lee as the leader, and given his MMA background, the media jumped on board with this. It's ironic because Lee's now serving a longer sentence in Morocco than what he would have if he stayed within the UK. His name is, of course, truly infamous, not only in the MMA world, but in the world of crime. From the bright lights of the UFC to an existence spent rotting in a Moroccan jail cell. This is truly a 1 in a million story from one of MMA's most volatile characters.
I'm sorry for what I've done. I'm sorry to the victims of the robbery. I hurt our people. I hurt my own family as well. I made them victims. All I can is to open up my engine. Depends on obviously when I get out of here. If I can't fight, then I'm obviously going to still be involved in MMA. There's no way I could give outside and not be involved in MMA. Fighting's my life. Fighting my blood. If I'm not in there fighting myself, I'm going to be taking people in there. One way or another, I need to win that UFC title. My story isn't finished. This is in the end.